Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inkspilled Glimmers. Tonight is a very special night. With the arrival of the DLC Toronto, which is basically in our backyards here, we decided to have a little chat not only with our resident pro, Alexandru, but also with two other owners of their invitational to the Continentals, Patrick, DeVoTeD Cote, and Pierre-Max Sailor Duguay. So, Patrick, Pierre-Marc, Alexandru, welcome.
Hey, hey.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you guys for taking time out of your vacation to join us here tonight.
Perfect.
So, I guess we'll start by introducing both Alexandru and you guys to those who might not know who you are, where you guys come from in terms of card games, your journey to Lorcana, and basically how you got your invite to the Continentals.
I'll let the guests begin.
All right.
All right. Who's first? Go ahead, Patrick.
All right, I go first. So yeah, for background in TCGs, obviously, like a lot of people, I started with Magic. When I was like 14 years old, so that's a long time ago. And then did had money, obviously, so not the strongest deck, but still very much a lot of fun there. I kind of learned the basics of the games, and then I went more into the digital world with Hearthstone and maybe a dozen of digital game. And then recently, I came back to physical with Keyforge. I got my invitation for the World Champ that didn't happen because COVID. And now it's Lorcana, which I very like, and it was fun to play also in Pixelborn. RIP, but yeah, it's a very cool game. In the DLC were my first big event in person. I did some big event in digital games, but the in-person one that was my biggest and was quite fun. So I'm really looking forward for that Toronto one.
Nice. Congratulations for first big tournament.
Yeah,
And
it's
you
nice.
got your invite
paper.
in Chicago, right?
Yeah, top 16 in Chicago.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Pierre-Marc.
Awesome. All right. Myself, I started playing Magic the Gathering in 1994. I was 5 years old. The revised set just had come out. I was in first grade, and we were in need of just bringing like our favorite toy. I brought like a remote car, and somebody brought their Goblin Magic the Gathering deck, and I just fell in love with the game right away at 5 years old. I've played throughout all my life. I played competitively, mostly the Legacy format back in 2009, 10, 11. I was doing the SCG in the United States back then. Did well in some of these tournaments. And yeah, after this, I sold all my dual lens. Rest in peace, $2,000 for all 40, and just to drink beers and yeah, and do drafts basically. So I kept on playing drafts and sealed for other like for the rest of the time. And then when Magic Arena happened, I've started playing this, and I was just getting really frustrated with the lens system in general. And so, back 1 year ago when Lorcana started, I bought 2 starter pack to play with my niece, and I was just like, "Oh, wow, this is so neat! I really like this." And then eventually found out about Pixelborn, and then grinded the hell out of that. I went to Grandmaster within 2 months, and then I was top 25 on on the Pixelborn season for all seasons until the end, and or close to 25, like 29, I think in one of those. And yeah, I played lots of Lorcana since then, like almost 4,000 games.
And also, if any one of you out there is playing Sisu on Ice, we don't want to say that Pierre-Marc might have invented the archetype, but let's just say he popularized it.
He pioneered it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's actually
I
what
mean,
I played for the top 16 in Chicago. It actually went really well, and a lot of mirror match in the top 64. Yeah,
yeah, there was a ton in Chicago, right? I coached
Mantoni.
Lorcana Bro to play Red Blue. Because a lot of people were still on Atlanta, and I wasn't going to Atlanta, so I had a lot of time to build the red blue lists, and yeah, I just stumbled upon Ice Block Big Sisu, and it just worked. Basically, I was just a little bit of luck of like finding the right thing at the right time. Also, I knew going into set 4 that the Diablo would be the meta-defining card, and it just appeared to be exactly the right call at that time. And so I built the best deck to beat it, and it just appeared to be exactly that for the whole set 4 metagame, basically. Obviously, with the arrival of like the Flynn Sisu on red purple, it became a bit harder to play red blue. But at the beginning of set 4, everybody was going crazy over that deck. And it got really viral because I'm in the testing group with Artabax and Lorcana Decklist and other people. And I was just playing Pixelbone while they were all testing for Lil and stuff like that, right? And I was just showing them screenshots of like me, like Medusa, the opposing Tamatoa with my double ice blocks and stuff like that. And like having the ice block on 1, playing the Daring Visitor Sisu on 3 to kill the Diablo and stuff like that. And everybody was just going like, wow, you might be onto something there. And it just eventually the list got modified a little bit, but it just happened to really
I mean, just like any meta, it adapts, right?
Yeah. So I kind of invented that, even though like I started from the red-blue list that was also built from the set 3, right? I participated into trying to refine that list, but I want to credit Savage for adding the Lucky Diamond to that. He was the first one to add Lucky Diamond to red blue, and I think that changed a lot of that. He added 1 copy. And so I was on his stream and looking at this, I'm like, oh, this is looking pretty good. Much better than I thought. Like everybody thought that card was trash, right? Because like 7 unincubable, 2 to activate, like that's way too much, right? And then I tried it myself against red purple in set 3, at the beginning of set 3. I was like, okay, this is just like turning the whole thing around. And I added 3. And I was beating every red purple on the ladder with my 3 lucky diamond. And then, so the rest is history.
That was the strength of Pixelborn, being able to try cards faster. I did play the Lucky Dime against Red Purple and keep winnings. And so I bought a full play set of Lucky Dime, and it was like $8 or $10 for the foil version. It was amazing.
I could literally change the market, right? Just by like trying things before people know. Then buying all the cards, and then I would know that 3 years later I would get like 300% profit, just like out of this, just because being able to do all of these things before people knew.
Yeah,
I'll call the commission to investigate your income for the next year.
When it's such a small market, it's quite easy. Also, I wanted to know where you got your invitation, because we asked Patrick. We didn't ask you where you got your invitation for the Continentals.
So I won mine in Dallas, going. With red blue as well, so it's kind of funny. We both got an invitational with red blue. Playing it 4th word, I finished 12th. In Dallas.
Pretty neat result. And last but not least, our original ticket owner, Alexandru.
So I'm Alexandru Tibirna. I don't have an online name because I haven't played that much Pixelborn or Lorcana online. And my name in Magic on Arena is kind of irrelevant, so at this point I'm not going to name it. So I've started playing TCGs about 10 years ago with Magic, which is the natural starting point for everybody. And I started playing competitively about 3 months in, so I was already doing the local scene, grinder events and everything. So pretty much after you both were like kind of done with Magic, I started in 2014, I think. And so I've never looked back since COVID has kind of ended and they started running events again competitively and in person. I started playing more seriously. I've gathered some results in big tournaments. Nothing professional yet, so it was quite a big surprise for me when I got top 8 in DLC Atlanta, which was the first DLC. I was going there without like any expectation. I hadn't played that much Pixelborn as you guys did, and like it just kind of happened. Like it just snowballed into like a top 8, and I was like, I still can't quite believe it. Like we got the dates for the Continentals in California this week, and they showed us some promos and everything. So I'm still like, I'm going to that thing. Wow.
We are.
Yeah.
So
Congrats.
Yeah,
You're
congrats.
the only one out of the 3 of us who has won the Mickey, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we were
But now
one game away.
there's a Mickey with the words word Chem on it. That's gonna be very nice.
Yeah, one of one,
For
right?
one person, yeah, 101. That's gonna be expensive.
6 numbers, right? 6
Yeah.
digits.
Yeah,
Ow.
it's gonna be the hugest flex. You're just like world champion. Yeah.
So, you've all got your invites, yet you're still all going to Toronto. What drives you to like go to more and more tournaments? I know, Drew, you did like Chicago, you did Fort Worth. You're going to Toronto. Like, why continue doing those events if you already get your invite?
I can go ahead and say like I needed to coach Patrick for Chicago. I'm kidding. He coached himself. It's all on him what he accomplished. It's just the thrill of it for me. Like I said that I like playing competitively, the highest competitive level of any card game I can get my hands on. I never got to the professional scene in Magic, so now for Lorcana, this is the highest competitive level yet, and it's just a great feeling. The guys can probably just confirm what I'm saying. It's such a thrill to be in a room with another 1,000, 2,000 people that are just as pumped as you are, that want to be playing, that want to just perform as at the peak of their capacity, right?
Yeah, clearly. Like I said before, I did play a lot of digital game and tournaments with like thousands of players, but when you're playing alone in your basement, it doesn't feel as great as in person. You don't feel the energy of the room and like the pressure of the event. Now, when you go to the DLC and you see thousands of people in the same single room playing the same single game that you enjoy, that's I don't know, a whole other level. It's a whole new world. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I also like the people that play this game. I'm not sure if it's with all TCGs, I guess not. But for this one, when I was winning, even if it was very like one-sided two O's, I didn't had to deal with like sore loser stuff like that. Everyone was happy about this, and I was talking about tips and tricks, which probably did help my tiebreakers. Like I did gave tips to all my opponents, which may have made the difference for the top cut. But yeah, it was a very fun experience. Just seeing 1,000 of people in the hotel playing around the day before the event. That was also very nice to see. All the tables were used in the restaurant and the lobby just for playing the card game. That's something you don't see everywhere, obviously.
Yeah, I'm used to these big events. I just came back from Gen Con. I'm a board game enthusiast. I have a podcast about board game in French, and also I've been playing like Grand Prix in Magic. Also, so playing lots and lots of rounds. I learned playing these Grand Prix that I had the stamina to endure those really really long days of just like anytime you're losing focus, you could lose out on all the prizing, right? Only 1 second doing a single mistake, you could lose out on everything, right? And that's something that I thrive, right? Not like focusing, like really, really getting into my games and not thinking about anything else. I'm playing a game that I know exactly numbers, right? I know all the numbers. I know everything about this game, and I'm there to play at my best capacity. And I know the longer the day goes, the more it favors me. So I'm in my zone, right? Like I'm exactly where I should be in the world right now. That's how I feel when I'm in these events. So the pure energy, as the guys were saying, right, of like being in that space with everyone trying to be like feeling the same vibe, right? And I have this little anecdote about Dallas. Then the first minutes, the first like no, the maybe the 30 minutes before it started on Saturday, I was feeling a bit like, anxious, nervous, right? It's not pretty normal. So I just found like a isolated bathroom in another room. I was alone because the lines were pretty long to get to the normal bathrooms. So I found like one that was really isolated. I put my headphones on. I listened to some Taylor Swift, like so really like pumping music or maybe soothing, depending on which songs, right? And and just trying to relax. And after when it started, I sit down, and the guy in front of me, we start chatting. He said, "Oh, you're s4iler. Oh, wow. Okay, we're in the same Discord." And the guy left to me. He's like, "Wow, you're s4iler. You coach me on Red Luna." And I started like putting my first card into my inkwell, and I'm like, okay, no stress anymore. This is exactly the game I know all about. And when I started playing the cards, I was like, this is just fun. I'm just here for fun. Like it doesn't matter. Whatever happens, right? I'm just here for fun. The vibe is great. The people are nice. Everybody's smiling. Like, yeah. What you yeah. Just go to the
What do
next
you want,
one
right?
and the next one and
Yeah.
go again.
It's just unfortunate that it's quite expensive to go to all of them. Otherwise, I would
Yeah.
probably do. But at least as soon as you do like top cut and stuff, it kind of pays back if you sell your promo. So that's
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
another cool point about those DLCs. And now we're talking about Toronto, which is by far the closest one. So this one is not as expensive to go. So for sure, I want to be there, and I'm gonna go with my family. So that's gonna like convert to a family trip too. So it's like two
Yeah.
for one.
We can
Yeah.
drive. You can drive to get to this one
Yeah.
instead of like flying. Like I've flown
That's a
to
big
all of them,
difference.
especially for the Dallas one, which happened exactly at the same time that Microsoft just shut down
Yep.
on that Friday before. I spent 21 hours in an airport. Like I tell this story a lot, but like I got to Dallas at around like 2 in the morning before the DLC. I probably slept like 4 hours before starting to play on that day. So I was like, yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I was on the other side of this. I didn't face any problem. And I was
Wow.
flying from
Lucky
Montreal
you.
on the same day. Everything was crashing. I had to fly to Toronto first, and then from Toronto to Dallas, and everything was fine. And I was looking at the board. I was like, "This is canceled. This is canceled. This is canceled. This is delayed. This is delayed." And mine was all good, all on time. I was like, "Okay, well, my luck started there."
You
Yeah,
had
it
a
all
lucky
it all
domino
lined
deck.
up.
That's why.
So, how do you guys prepare for a tournament like Toronto? Like, what's your training regimen? I know both Patrick and Pierre-Marc, you talked about being used to playing on Pixelborn, which is not a solution anymore. So, how do you prepare for these things?
Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, I can go ahead. Obviously, Pixelborn is a challenge. There's Pixelborn Connect now, but the time it needs to do a lot of games is different. Like for Chicago, I had 400 games with the same deck. I was tracking all my win lose and the opponent's deck and getting some notes, play, draw, and best of three because it's the hardcore mode. So those 400 games were really useful because I knew what to do against every single deck of the meta. So that was very nice. So what I would say for preparation is to do as many games as possible. It can be hard, but there's a lot of local scenes, so I think it's possible to find people or just try to use Pixelborn Connect or even I think Tabletop has simulation has the game playing on it. So yeah, you need to know your mulligans basically, and the only way to know what the good mulligan is to try it out and see if it pays out or not, and if you need to be greedy. And I don't know if we have another question in the future about like the strategy, but yeah, playing the game before helps with your strategy during the event, and it's long event, so prepare food, drinks. Another thing, I can give a little anecdote on my Chicago DLC. I had sleeved my deck from like set 1, 2, 3, 4 with the same color of sleeve, and the red blue deck has cards from all those sets. So I had sleeve that were more used than the other one because I was playing them since set 1 and others from set 4. So when I was in the top cut, they did a deck check to me in the Swiss phase and didn't mention anything. But in the top cut, they checked everyone and they said my sleeve were not okay. So and that was like a 5 minute before the top 64 match start. They called me, "Hey, your sleeve are not okay. Cool, let's go see that." They go to the judges room and they say, "Oh, you need to change at least 40 of them. These one." And looking at my my bag, I had a open box that had 61 sleeve in there, so I was pretty lucky because I run 60 card deck. So I start sleeving the 40, but then when they put the new 40 with the old 20, even if they were brand new, the color didn't match perfectly because it's a different box. So I had to sleeve the 60 of them, like 3 minutes before the event starts. So that kind of stressed me out for no good reason. And then when the first game started, all those brand new sleeves were so slippery that I tried to compress my deck to reduce the size of it, and it just all went on the floor. I had four judge at my table grabbing the cards on the floor, and we started like 2 minutes late because I had to count again, shuffle again, do all that little step again. So yeah, you need brand new sleeve, but also like a brand new box, and make sure all your sleeve comes from the same box because they have like manufacturing problems with sleeves
Yep.
sometimes, and they don't look the same.
Yep.
So make sure you use one single box for your card and bring another box because you play like 9 round of Swiss. So just those 18 games can really mess up your sleeve with shuffling and stuff. So you need to have also brand new ones for the big day, the day two, if you can make it. That's the goal, obviously.
Yeah, the paper players will know that, but of course the Hearthstone players won't. You should always re-sleeve your deck the day before, always with new sleeves, and always have some number of replacement sleeves also, right? Like so, of course the 100 pack are good choices for that because at least you have some replacements if anything happens.
Yeah, and just to like go back on like the preparation regime before the tournament, I think now that Pixelborn and every like online platform is kind of out of the question. Well, there's Pixelborn Connect that I tried for one, but it was a lot slower. Like Patrick said, you cannot just jam a big density of games with that. It's if I want to jam a bigger density of games, I'll just rope in some friends that have a good level in TCGs. I've roped in a lot of guys from Magic that will be in Toronto with me this next week. So we prepared together. We're still preparing together. We drove around. Like we're gonna probably road trip next weekend before. The weekend before DLC Toronto to go prepare in Sherbrooke with other higher level players. So we're able to have like a good idea of what's happening with the metagame, which will be a weird one. Like we're gonna probably have a question about that later.
Definitely gonna touch on that, yeah.
But yeah, you want to prepare as much as you can before, either with friends, either with Pixelborn Connect. I'm also preparing with some friends from Get Snow, which is not close for us in Quebec City, but that's why I got a setup for Pixelborn Connect. So now I can play that. I can also play with that friend. He was with me in Atlanta, so that's my training regime. Is like a lot of games, really trying to be as serious as possible. I know Pat mentioned like taking like a lot of data, like your win-lose ratio, what good mulligans to take, what not to do, and everything. What are the cards that overperform in certain matchups? You have to be as thorough as possible with those things.
Yeah, of course. As for myself, I think people sometimes like try. You need to be at a really high level to just switch decks, right? In like week before or something like that. So I think for most people, they'd be better off just like playing the decks they know the best. Because I think you just from knowing the mulligans and what to ink on the first few turns will change your win rates much more than just switching decks. Like having a more precise metagame call for the day. Because you get a lot of value out of exactly knowing how to mulligan against specific decks, but also on the blind, on the play versus on the draw. And so I would say that's what I think got me in Dallas, is that even though I had not played much on the month prior to Dallas because of the end of Pixelborn, of course I had a friend who that is pretty good in TCG, but he's playing Lorcana, but not as heavily invested as I am. So we tested decks, right? But I was more playing like other decks just to try to see how these deck plays and what could be another option outside of red blue. And I was just not really like falling in love with anything else, and so I just ended up playing the deck I know more. And the reasons for this is also because I had done 100 hours of coaching on Red Blue. So I have coached basically since Atlanta, well, the beginning of set 4 until Dallas. All I did every 2 nights and sometimes like 3 times a day is coach somebody else, somebody differently on Red Blue. So I had speak so much about that deck, knowing exactly all the lines, how to mulligan properly, right? And so I actually didn't play much before Dallas. It's the exact opposite of what Alexandru just said. And it's not because Alexandru is wrong with his approach, right? I think it's the right approach. It's just that my reality is that I have a kid. I don't have like close friends. Like my closest friends is like an hour drive just to be playing in paper. And so my reality was just like talking a lot about about my deck, knowing everything theoretically about it, right? Knowing what I was expecting. So I try to always go for a metagame breakdown of what I expect in every tournament and try to see if my deck is good against like the biggest portion of the field, right? So trying to anticipate what you're gonna play against is pretty important at the highest level, right? So trying to anticipate that. But of course, on the day, you could be playing something completely different because it's random, right? In the first few rounds, even though you predicted exactly the right share of metagame, maybe it's completely different of what you'll be playing in the first few rounds because there's going to be random people playing random things, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't happen for me, and I played exactly what I thought was going to be the top decks. Maybe I didn't play as many red purples as I thought I would in my favor, right? Because it's my worst matchup. So, of course, you need some luck, and I'm not going to deny that at all. You're going to need some luck to go at the top of these events, right? They're so cutthroat. Like, if 3% only of the people in day 1 will go to day 2. Like, that's pretty cutthroat.
Yeah, this one in Toronto will be much smaller, but I have to piggyback on what you say. Like, I always tell people about these events. I feel those events are 50% luck and 50% preparation. You are in charge of your preparation. You can do this 50% as best you can to capitalize on the share of luck you're gonna have. Like, some people are telling me, oh, luck is a smaller share or whatnot. No. It's 50%. And if luck is with you and you prepared well, you're gonna capitalize on the good luck. Because sometimes if you're not well prepared, well, even if you're lucky, you're gonna lose some edge points that you could have had by preparing better. This is how I see it. So that you want to like everything to align properly.
Yeah, and especially in the Swiss phase, like luck is a big part of any TCG. But when you do 9 rounds, you're gonna be lucky in one and gonna be unlucky in the other. Like the more you play, the more the stats and the statistic will just even out. So you need to be able to win when you're lucky, which is easier, but also how to win when you're unlucky. So that's where the skills will take place. And we mentioned what we have control on and not, and how to win tournaments. Like for a game, obviously you have the top decks and stuff like that, the luck of drawing your cards correctly, which you don't control. So don't focus on that. Obviously, it doesn't make any sense. But the mulligan and the inking, I think that's where all the strategy is. Like playing the board is often obvious, not all the time, but like there's no like very deep decisions, but inking a card and mulliganing it's a very big part of winning a game. And then for winning a tournament, you have the luck of the bracket. But I think what you have control on is trying to, like you mentioned, s4iler, to uh, anticipate what are the meta share of the tournament and pick the correct deck according to it. And then if you did the right call, you should have more good matchup than bad and then win. So you have two kind of luck and like a bunch of stuff you can have control on. So just focus on the one you have control and hope the luck is with you, just like the force is with you in Star Wars. So.
And Drew mentioned the shift in metagame, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, who's not Madame Mim. How do you think like Bucky leaving the meta will affect the Toronto event? Because we've done all season in a meta that was defined by Bucky Diablo. Now he's gone. What are you guys expecting as like in a matter of change from that?
What do you mean he's gone? He only costs one more. He's not word. He only does his thing with shift.
Unplayable, unplayable.
Alright.
Definitely still a meta contender. Sorry, I'm.
No. You're not going to see any Bucky in day two. That's for sure. I think the biggest question is what are the green steel players going to do? Because I think a lot of people who played red purple, red blue, amber steel, blue steel, they're gonna probably stick to what they know best, right? Because it's too hard to predict. It takes way too much preparation to try to figure out what people are gonna bring. And even if you come to a conclusion about what people should bring, maybe other people will go to a different conclusion because their testing was either more precise or less precise, right? We don't know. It was more extensive or maybe it was less extensive. And so I think it's incredibly, really, really hard to predict what is exactly going to be. Because of the green steel players are gonna split into all different things, right? Some number of them are just gonna take out Bucky and still play a really good deck, maybe more aggressive, right, with Diablos and stuff like that. I think some of them who were liking the discard outlet will maybe switch to the Amber Emerald version, which is a pretty oppressive and, by the way, really, really frustrating deck to play against, right? I think it's might be even worse than Bucky, to be honest. Yeah. But at least I think that deck has some weaknesses, which the Green Steel deck didn't have as much. So yeah, some of those are going to go there. We could say that Green Steel was playing similarly to Ember Steel with all this sound package, right? So I think some number of those could go to Ember Steel as well. And then there's a bunch who maybe they're just different. Maybe they were playing Mufasa before, and then it was their worst matchup. The Green Steel was their worst matchup, so maybe they'll go back to Mufasa, or a bunch of other things like that.
Yeah, also some people will probably just 180 from Green Steel and just start playing like Ruby Amethyst or one of the two blue decks. Like, I think like to just build upon what you just said. My reading of it is probably the people that were really big fans of Green Steel will probably go on Steel Songs, because this is probably the closest play pattern, and this is the easiest to understand when you are a mid-range player in this game. And I feel like the mid-range is kind of like the meat and potatoes of Lorcana. Either that and the slower, grindier decks. Because as of now, before set 5, we didn't have actual, valid, really good aggro decks, right?
Absolutely not.
Like I can't. I have to think back of like set 1 to think about like Lemon Lime, which was the Ember Emerald aggro deck. There was like that.
Was Emerald Amethyst?
Yeah, Emerald Amethyst is the one I was searching for. So those were like the aggro-ish decks. Well, and there is one Emerald Amethyst deck floating around that hasn't done that well for the past month or so, but might still be like a player in the event, and like you have to account for it. So I don't really know. I don't know what Patrick's reading of it is.
Yeah, I think Sailor's on point. You need to figure out what the Bucky players are going to play, and I think a lot of them will actually go back to like the green steel of set 3, where you had like Merfolk and Flynn. It's a more aggressive deck, which has a lot of potential and still playable, in my opinion. So this one is a good choice. But then for the other deck outside of green steel, I don't think they're going to change that much, because most of the deck, maybe you change the amount of one card that was good against Bucky. So maybe for a steel deck, you play less Tinkerbell or less Grab Your Swords. But like the core of the deck shouldn't change. Or maybe with the red blue, you can play less Be Prepare or the Big Sisu. But globally, you just maybe remove one or two card that was good against Bucky because you don't expect it, but they are still good against a lot of decks. So if people switch to the new green yellow discard deck, you still need those grab to destroy the John Silver and stuff like that. Is it John Silver? No, Prince John. Prince John, yeah.
Prince John.
So yeah, you still need those cards anyway. So you're not gonna change all your cards because there's no Bucky, because there's other decks that people will play that kind of plays with ward and small characters. So yeah, I don't think the deck will change that much. What will change is which decks succeeds most, because some of them had worse matchup against Bucky than the others. So their share of the decks in like top 64 will probably change a lot. Obviously, Green Steel might not be as present as the other challenge, but yeah, that's a change. But for decks, I don't expect to see that many changes outside of few cards here and there that was especially there for Bucky. Or if someone was playing Avalanche, like this one will probably go out.
Oh yeah.
No, no
It
Avalanche
should have
anymore.
been out already.
Um, I think there's still decks that were really bad against this that we could expect to see more. I think I was mentioning Amber Emerald. I think this deck was really good, but we just had like a terrible matchup against Green Steel, and so I think that's a really good choice. But it's by far the most difficult deck to play.
It is the hardest deck. Like I've tried the deck, and it's unforgiving, right?
Yeah.
You could play like to probably. I'm gonna discredit myself because I made my top four, my top eight, playing Bucky before it was cool. The deck is quite forgiving. The set 4 iteration of it was so forgiving in most spots. If you had the I call it the nut draw, where you were going on like Bucky into turn, where you were going one drop Diablo into turn 2, Bucky pitch in an action, shift your Diablo into the 3 drop and go quest or remove the 1 drop on the other side. You were so far ahead.
Yep.
And you could just forgive like maybe shake your start where you're left with what, 1 or 2 cards in hand after doing all of this, and then you can kind of start building upon it. So
Yeah.
so this is the thing, like by playing Emerald Amber, like you have to do a lot more setup. You take more game actions of you're playing cards like Painting the Roses Red that are not intrinsically good cards that you see every day in decks, but it's a key piece of playing a massive turn in the end.
Yeah,
So-
forgiving is the word here, the key word, because I've seen so many people missing the triggers on the Diablo and like, too bad, it's like 2 turns later or something like that. Even the Rat, which is a very strong player, didn't miss triggers in the finals, but we cannot really blame him when you're on the spotlight for finals. It's probably very stressful, so I would have missed trigger probably also, but yeah, just in general, like missing trigger is pretty bad with Diablo, but they still win because it's not a big deal when you can draw a lot of cards the other turn anyway. So yeah, it's a very forgiving deck. So it's interesting to see what's gonna come out. Maybe we're gonna be seeing more like Mufasas that had a hard time against this card because they don't draw a lot of card anyways. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
And we've been kind of dancing around this topic for a bit, but as of today, what's the deck you're expecting to see the most in Toronto? Like, is it going to be like red purple everywhere, like we've kind of seen in the Ursula meta, or do you guys expect some shift from that?
Not everywhere, but I think it's most definitely going to be the most popular deck, in my opinion. I don't know if you guys have a different read about it, but I'm pretty sure that even some Green Steel players might just revert to that because that was their good matchup. So now it feels like red purple has a better fighting chance, I would say. For sure, it's not like great against Steel Songs in general, but you're really good against the blue decks. And if people that were playing the blue decks will still play the blue decks, you might want to beat them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Ruby Amethyst is still the most played decks for sure. It's always been. There's not only like the reason. I think it's pretty forgiving as well, right? You just play rabbits and bounce them, right? That I know there's more to it, but like this is it's pretty strong, and there's level to it for sure because I'm not afraid to face normal Ruby Amethyst players. Like the one I'm afraid to be playing against are the really top level ones. But and so I know for a fact there's like a huge skill difference in that deck. So there have to be choices made, right, to be making that difference. But I think the price of the deck the fact that it was good for so long that people just have these cards, right? So it's so much easier for people to just take on that deck. I think it was heavily democratized as like a good deck also, not only on the price, but like by having the players like Kendall, which his username is no, I'm not, doing like guides on how to play the deck, right? And so I think it won a lot of set championships because I think at like local events and stuff like that, it's just a really good deck. And I think it really struggles in these challenges. And I know it doesn't show because a lot of the finals were Red Ruby Amethyst winning by really good players. But when you were looking at Dallas and even recently Bologna numbers, Ruby Amethyst players just are basically the worst conversion rates on day two. Like they're always been on the last two events because people know exactly how to play against that deck, right? Because they've been playing against that deck for so long, and the really good players, they're just not afraid of it. They're so prepared to exactly play against it. And so I think a lot of like the medium to like, I would say average or good players, but not the greatest ones, can just pick up that deck. But then they have the target on their back and they suffer a lot from it, and they just split games all day, right? It's not that they're exactly bad or that their deck choice is bad or whatever. It's just that everybody's so prepared for it that you don't have any rogue factor coming into the event. And so it's really hard to win both on the play and on the draw when everybody's prepared to know exactly what you're going to do. And it's kind of an easy deck to predict what they're going to do. Like they don't have tricks up their sleeves, right? Like you can always play safe when you're playing against that deck because you know exactly what they're going to play. So I think it's going to be the most played decks, and it's also going to suffer again in the past two events. I think it's still going to be one of the worst conversion rates on day two.
I have to crack a pun on this. Like you said it a lot of times, but like that deck is the one deck that is still playing for be prepared. So we just took the advice from the deck. We were prepared for it.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to be prepared for Ruby Amethyst.
I mean, after a
sure.
year, like, how many times can you be told to be prepared and not prepare?
Yeah, so Ruby Amethyst is going to be the most played deck, but I want to give a big recognition for Ember Steel, which I think it might be the best choice for Toronto. And also, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to say exactly that, are going to think exactly that. And there's been improvements in the deck lists, right, since Dallas as well, with the Chris Oyola deck list with Perdita and ARPS
Golden
and stuff
Harp.
like that, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
The Golden Harps is a great tech.
Yeah. Exactly. So, which was actually started by Wochuk, which is like an old Pokemon pro player. So, and this guy has been playing like, I've been grinding Ember Steel in ladder for months and months and months, right? And so, he brought the ARPS, and we were like, what is this guy playing? Like, ARPS? Come on, you cannot even play that on turn one. And apparently, of course, now that you think about it, it's just like the perfect post A Whole New World card to be playing, right? So you just ink it if you draw it before your first Whole New World, and then you just want to draw as many as possible after the first Whole New World, and you're just gonna win most games by doing that.
Mm.
Yeah, I was going to say Ruby Amethyst too, so no big surprise there. I think the consistency of the deck and also the cost, but I wouldn't put that much emphasis on cost because people going to DLC obviously have some money to put on plane traveling and making deck. Maybe some locals from Toronto will have like cheaper deck, but globally cheap deck is not really something you should look for a good representation. But consistency of the deck is really good. Like I only did 4 set championship because of kids and family stuff, but I did 3 of them with Ruby Amethyst because consistency is what I'm looking for this event where the skill gap can really change and you don't want to lose to a new or casual player because you didn't draw the IRM or stuff like that in the blue deck. So having a consistent deck where the skill gap is very different, I think is a good choice because your skills can make you win basically any game. Like you have a 50-50 matchup against most decks, so that's what you call like in the past Jun in Magic. So that's why people call it Jun. Yeah, I don't play Magic in that era, but Yeah, I knew it comes from there. So having a deck that can win everything and lose everything, you can like really play with your skills to put that 50 to like a 55 or 60 and then win all the games. So that's cool. But for a big DLC, you should expect everyone at day two to be very good. So when the skill gap is like equal, then you need to have either a good matchup or be lucky. So maybe that's why I'm trying to play something else than Ruby Amethyst, because there are some decks that has good matchups, so you can get an edge even if the skill is equal. Or you can have some deck like Steel Song that has explosive starts that just can win on the spot. Where Ruby Amethyst is kind of linear, you can see what it's going on to do. You can predict it, but some Steel Song can just go crazy, like the Bucky deck with Diablo. Nut start can go crazy. So having decks that can be explosive or have very strong matchup could be a better choice in those scenarios because the skill gap will be very similar and you're gonna see mirror match too. So you need to be prepared for those mirror match if you play Ruby Amethyst.
There's also that, right? When your deck is the most played, you have more mirror match, and the mirror match historically, of course, are closer to 50-50 than any other matchups, right? Unless you know exactly how to play that mirror match, and people don't. But so you all have like this share of metagame that you can't really work your way around unless you play like really anti mirror match cards, which sometimes will hinder your other matchups, right? So it's always like a given push and pull.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
important to remember that you need a lot of 2-0s to do day two. And if you do
Yeah.
mirror match all over again and you just do 1-1, then you're just not gonna go, even though you're maybe playing super well that deck. It's just not enough. So you need the special sauce for the deck to be the mirror, because otherwise it's quite risky.
That's what
Exactly.
that's what
Sorry, I'm going to let you talk
yeah,
right
yeah, no
after
problem.
Alexandru. But,
No problem.
there's something that people who haven't attended any of these DLC need to know. Like, this is a different format than best of three. Like, you need to be proactive on the play, having your own game plan. You cannot play a reactive game plan on the play, right? Like, you need to be exactly knowing how to mulligan on the play on the blind, and have like a really, really like sound curve and idea of what your deck wants to do. So you having a really like passive deck is kind of not so great in 2 game formats. And I think the reason the reason like the Ruby Amethyst kind of need the Flint package because of that, because it provides them like a really nice curve on the play, but then on the draw it's much harder because that card is pretty bad on the draw, right?
Yeah.
So they kind of like this really deck building problem of needing something to be really proactive because of 2 game format, but also having this really harsh cards that are pretty bad on the draw. So I've said it many times, and with my friend Artabax, who's really proponent of the Ruby Amethyst in set 4, I was like, man, you're just playing a split archetype. Like, you're just gonna split all day, man. You're not gonna go 2-0 with this deck. Like,
My
not
point, yeah.
not as much as you would like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even
Yeah.
though you're a great player, so you're gonna need more luck than if you pick a deck that is much better on the play on the draw.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. Like, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. Like, this deck is notorious for going 1-1 because you want to be doing everything, but you're not doing anything excellently. Like, you're not. You're just the best all-around deck. Patrick mentioned Jund from Magic, which for the viewers at home is like the deck that has 50 across the board. Like, you might win really easily, but you also, people feel that they have a no K matchup against you, so it's always, you're gonna have to play your game to the end. There's no like free win, but there's no like free free lose. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to come about. Like, you want to capitalize on your 2 wins, like Pierre-Marc was saying. Like, that is why I liked playing Green Steel. That's why I like playing mid-range decks that have explosive starts and that can like let you get away with those, with sometimes with some more passive starts from your opponent.
And since we mentioned like difference with the DLC and some local tournaments being best of two versus best of three, there's another big difference which is the open deck list that is very important. I talked about having like secret sauce, but that just works for the Swiss phase because when you're in the top cut, everyone can see the deck list of the opponent beforehand. So if you have a secret tech card, they're gonna know about it and they can play around it. But that's funny because you can also use that as an advantage as just being a threat for the opponent. Like in my Chicago deck list, I had one Judy up, so the opponent was kind of scared to just drop a lucky dime and do nothing on it on maybe turn 7 or 8. So they had to keep it back. And one game it did gave me a win against a blue steel player. I did destroy the lucky dime, but just the menace of having it of the deck is actually it's actually stronger than the card. So knowing that your opponent sees your deck, it could be a reason to put some of those deck cards they need to play around just in case you have it because it can swings games. And yeah, it's kind of a psychological way to challenge your opponent. And also one thing that's very strong in TCG is making your opponent's turn harder. So just having a tech card like this in your deck makes their turn harder, and now they can make more mistakes. So having card like this is very strong.
Yeah.
And Alexandru, like in Atlanta, you made top 8, but the winner ended up being, I think it was Amethyst Emerald, like a deck that was completely left
Metis
field.
Ember.
Amethyst Ember, right? That no one had seen come. Do you guys expect, like with this, I'll say late format tournament, an unforeseen event like this happening, or do you really expect it to be more of the same? I know Pierre-Marc, you said earlier that people probably won't be trying to like tech out and guess everything because it's a lot of work, but do you think someone might do it? And sliding, do you think there's a place now that Bucky's not there for a surprise deck to come around and just sweep everything?
You're gonna be rewarded. Like I think, like I was talking to Josh Paltry, that was the winner from Atlanta after the final match. He was like, I was super rewarded for being lucky on the matchup roulette. Like he said, I was so happy that you were knocked out of top 8 by Ruby Amethyst because I didn't want to play against you. I cannot win against Green Steel. That's what he was saying. So the thing is, if you want a really outlandish deck, you have to really master it. You have to know it inside and out, even more than one of the meta decks, because you have to capitalize on your good matchups, and you really have to stem the bleeding in the bad ones. Like Josh was saying, he was unable to win against Green Steel, and he hadn't played against a single one the whole weekend. So, you know, that was also a bit of luck, but his meta call was great against the rest of the field.
Yep. I think it's certainly possible, and I think people will try it. I think Josh shown that it could work, but I also think that people will over-evaluate that because they'll think they can do it themselves, right? But
yeah,
as Alexandru just said, it's going to be much harder and based on a lot of luck on your pairings in order to be doing that. Because I think, let's say we know and we're expecting Ruby Amethyst to be the most played deck, right? So what Josh did is that he capitalized on that and he said, okay, I'm just going to build the belts deck against that exact like Ruby Amethyst, right? That's what he did. And he played against Ruby Amethyst all day. When I didn't play against a single Ruby Amethyst in Dallas, even though the meta share was 20, close to 25, right? Well, I played against one, but it was late on the rounds and I split, so we didn't need to play. So I think people will try it. I think it's the perfect time to be doing it, honestly. I just think, like I said before, that it needs a lot of preparation, and you're doing all of that preparation for a single event, right? There's nothing like there's only one set 4.5 meta game tournament. It's this one. So you know that you're putting lots of work for a single tournament, and you could just be brewing new decks for the next metagame, right? So there's all this appeal to try to brew decks. But here you're trying to break a metagame that is only right and only like for one tournament.
It's a 1 week format.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But if that tournament sends you to California,
I know.
Yeah, if you want to do that, you need to master your deck against all like the big four of the meta right now. But the fun thing is that usually the other players will not have practice against your deck because it doesn't really exist. I was playing a green yellow deck, like the discard one. It's not super meta, but it's quite strong. And people don't know how to play against this deck. Like they don't do the great play, just not because they're bad players, just because they haven't seen it before, so they don't know what to expect. So having a off meta deck usually is not as strong, but the surprise factor is so high that it can overcome the fact that the deck is not as strong. But you need to practice it, and on your side, you did practice against the top meta deck, so it's like a one-way advantage of knowing how to mulligan and what to do that the other opponent usually doesn't have, because not a lot of players will try to play against off meta decks because they're not really known what's the best build. So it's the surprise factor is pretty strong. Yeah.
yeah, I
There's
know
a
when you
risk
brought
associated
down,
with that.
yeah.
So if you're going with that, well, if you're listening to this, it's probably too late. You shouldn't do that. But, if you're going with that, I certainly hope that you came prepared for it. But also, I wish you luck in your pairings, because it's pretty. I don't think it's possible to be trying to find a deck that is good against the 4 or 5 best decks, right?
Yeah.
It's
Because
just not possible.
if there was such a deck, then this one would be top meta, and it will not be a off meta deck anymore. I think this can only happen like if there's a tournament at the first week of a release. Like you can see one person playing a very strange deck that did win all the event, but
Yeah.
so late in the set, I don't think it's gonna happen that we have a deck that can beat all top four
No.
easily.
You,
So yeah.
you need to capitalize on 1 or 2 and hope that these are gonna be what you're gonna play against.
You're going fingers crossed to not have a miserable day against your bad matchup.
Yep.
Yeah, and the difference with Atlanta, I think, is that in Atlanta there weren't DLCs before. Sure, there was Pixelborn, there was the ladder, but now we have these big events, 1,000, 2,000 players playing for real big stakes, and everyone's looking at the results. So I agree with you guys that we would have probably seen something come out, but I'd still be happy to see some
bit of
random
spice.
Blurple deck just come out on top out of the blue.
Yeah, Blurple really needs a new card from the new set to be good, I think.
I mean, honestly, you take Josh lists and you just go play that, you could just be fine, right? Like, it could work, honestly, like, because it was good against Ruby Amethyst. I'm pretty sure it's still good against Ruby Amethyst.
Oh yeah, for sure. The only thing that really contested is now the Flins, but we just said that it's not great every time, and like Patrick just said, the element of surprise is something you can bank on, but you cannot bank on it both games. Good players will adapt in the second game. Maybe they'll keep a bad hand in the blind, but the good players will already be in their second game in their head, trying to visualize what is the best configuration of hand to be able to beat that outlandish deck.
And this happens at every DLC, but it's the one closer to us, so it's the one where we actually know people doing that. A lot of people who've never been to big tournaments, I know that you guys have traveled quite a bit, Patrick a little bit less, to these big kind of events. A lot of people, it's the closest one to them. They're doing well in leagues, they're doing well in set championships. They want to try their lucks. What are your advices for those people who have never been in a 1,000, 2,000 people event?
I would say go ahead and go there for fun. Don't try to put too much pressure on you to perform. These tournaments are incredibly hard. I'm not gonna lie to you, and you need some number of luck, as we said. And you're gonna be much better in your mind going into it without too much expectations of yourself, because you kind of need to be enjoying the process and enjoying the energy that is going through. And so if you, of course, you can prepare as much as you can and as much as you want, and that's really important. But going into the event, right, playing the first games and stuff, like don't put too much pressure on yourself. Try to be playing at the best as you can, and just the normal stuff, right? Like eat, sleep,
Drink a lot of water.
and in between rounds, listen to yourself. What is relaxing you, or what is stressing you? Try to act accordingly, right? Is it like going out and taking some time for yourself? Then is that good for you? Then do that. If is it talking to other people? Then do that, right? Like listen to yourself and try to be like tempered and nice psychologic energy.
Yeah, and the big difference, obviously, the amount of players and the time. So I would focus on those difference. What it means is like first, when you finish your game, you cannot just go around and look at everyone's deck and what we call like scouting. There's
Yeah.
way too many people. When you play local events, you know who plays what, so you go there, you know what to you're up again, you know the skill level of the other player. Now you know nothing. So really, my tip is to live like one game at a time. Don't think about the future one, especially in the top 64 when you can see the bracket. Like, don't look at the decks you might play against if you win. Just focus on deck you're playing against now and do one step at a time. Don't focus on the prize, focus on one game. And the same for the Swiss. Like, you'll see maybe in the first 3 rounds, you can find some more like average slash casual players, but then as soon as you hit like round 4 or 5, the difficulty will increase very fast. And then you're gonna have like some of those finals you have in championship all over again every game. So you need to play the best you can, but this is a 9 round Swiss, which is not something you're gonna see in locals. So you need to be prepared again for that. You need to have like maybe some energy drinks or have at least a very good sleep the day before, because at least for me, because I was playing more digital games, it felt like a long day. Like when I lost my top 16 match, I was going to the side event and I was not playing well. Like my head was hurting a bit and I had to like take a rest. So between the rounds, instead of like going, talking with everyone and like chatting and stuff, I was just walking, relaxing, and trying to get ready for the next game, because it's a long day for sure. So that's something it's hard to prepare for, because we don't have those long event in local games. They usually end up like twice as fast. But yeah, this is something that needs to be taken into consideration when preparing for those events.
Also,
Yeah.
if you're playing any of the blue decks, or even like Ruby Amethyst, don't play too slow. But also don't make mistakes by playing too fast. So you need to find your right pace, but by playing too slow you're putting a lot of pressure on you eventually to not go to time, and you really don't want to do that, right? Like ever. And so when you're playing the slower decks, it's on you to be playing at a good pace, right? And so I think if that could also be meaning that maybe you take a different deck choice, right? Because if you don't master your speed in your slower decks, I think you'll suffer from it. So yeah, there's also that to be taking into consideration.
Yeah, I want to build upon this. Like, what I want to say is like, play at a decent pace, but also take your time. You know what you're doing. You played the game before. I would assume that most people that are going there are in the known about the level of play and everything. I don't want to say are playing to the highest level necessarily, but you are aware of what you're doing. You have been playing the game in leagues, in store champs, maybe in other DLCs. Take your time, be clear. Always like announce what you're doing, just so there's no confusion, so there's no like, I don't know, like bumpy interactions or whatnot. If you're going to draw a card for your draw step, you say draw step. If you ready your permanence, like, just be as vocal as possible, and there will not be any misunderstanding and everything. Same thing with calling a judge. Don't be afraid to call a judge. If there's something weird happening in your game, or if there's an interaction that you're kind of missing or whatnot, just call judge and be clear about what is happening, and all should be fine.
Thanks. So, how excited are you guys for this weekend's news of California and potentially Florida if things go well, but also the fact that right now it's about 100 people going to California from the qualifiers alone. So, what are your expectations moving forward to like prepare for the Continentals?
Yeah, super exciting news, right? To just like having finally something to be excited for, right? We were of course already excited to about the idea of going to these championships with these really good players, right? But now that we have finally like just a month, at least we don't have the exact date, but we know it's in January. We know it's in California, so I can start looking at like accommodations, but we don't even know exactly what is going to be. So, but
Yeah,
of
if
course, we're pretty
Ravensburger,
excited about it, at least to have some small informations.
yeah, we don't know if Ravensburger will give us an allocation or whatnot. We don't have like any privileged information as of now between us. Like we're gonna be transparent about that. But it's so exciting to play that level of game. I know that at Christmas I'll be all giddy. Like on New Year's I'm just gonna be like, let's go. We're going to California. Like I'm gonna be like super pumped. I'm gonna be playing a whole lot of games to prepare. I really hope some of my friends will be able to qualify for the event. So we are like a bigger maybe Quebec group going over there because like it's that's the thrill of it. That's what I was referring at the beginning of the video. It's so fun to play at those levels. Like to go back on the last question also, like enjoy, like you said, Pierre, have fun, go there to have fun. The event is hard enough as it is, competitively speaking. At least if you have fun, you'll feel good about it.
Yep.
Yeah, well said. I think for me, everyone was expecting those locations to be used for the Continental. It's nice that the rumors were true, like going to Disneyland for a tournament. Like the feeling there will be insane. I'm not sure where it's going to play, but probably the decors and everything around is going to be like awesome and stuff. I was hoping for Florida because it's closer, but it's there for the World Champ. So now I have a new goal to go to World Champ. They haven't released any info on how to qualify World Champ, like how many of
Yeah.
each of the European or any a continental championship will get qualified, but looking forward for that news. And it's like my second chance. I said before that I was invited for like the world championship of Keyforge. That never happened because it was in 2020 and COVID happened, and then they got bought, and they don't like rely on those qualifier anymore because it's a new company. But anyway, with that said, now it's like my second chance is up for grab, and I really want to know how to qualify for that world and hoping to do my best. And also I'm very excited to play something else that's set for. So having this in January 2025, that's gonna be a whole new meta to play with. So I'm
Yeah,
excited for that one.
six, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like set six for this one.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, and there's gonna be no other big like DLCs or whatever that's gonna be from that set, right? So it's
Yeah.
gonna be either like local tournaments or online. You know,
Wow.
it's gonna be a bit wild, right? I think.
the Wild West.
Yeah. With the best of the best, right? Trying to think about all of that, and of course it'll be amazing. Oh no, am I missing something? I think okay. So the European Continentals actually is going to be in December, but we don't know when, and so that means it could be set 6. So they could be leading the way for us. So
They could be our guinea pigs.
yeah, absolutely. It depends, right? Because I think the set releases like at end of November.
November, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's 2
they
weeks.
said that they're not going to be do the new sets 3 weeks before. So after the release of the local game stores, right? So if it's in the first 2 weeks of December, that would mean that it could be set 5 still. The argument I think that they could have for doing that is that both their continentals will have 2 different metagames. So I'm expecting it to be European could probably be set 5 metagame and us set 6 metagame.
And the other cool thing about those continental, at least for me, and you too, I guess, Sailor, we know already a lot of people from the online community going there. So just seeing those names and those people in person again, that's gonna be awesome. Like just playing online, chatting on Discord and stuff, you see those names and those are the people that qualify. So I already have a good idea of the potential challengers and players I'm gonna play against. So it's nice
Yeah,
finally putting
there's
faces on
48.
gamer tags.
Yeah, there's 48 of us right now, but there's going to be exactly the same numbers again, right? So
Yep.
we should be at 96, I think.
96.
Right?
That's what we've calculated here.
And then they announced that they're going to do a last chance qualifier, which I'm guessing is going to add. Well, it would need to be at 128. That would be 32.
34?
32.
If they want to do
players?
single elimination.
Yeah, 32, yeah.
So that's my guess. I think it will be a 128 people tournament.
Which is very small for that kind of competition. I'm just referring to like Pro Tours from Magic, where there are like 200, 300, 400 people depending on the size. This is quite small. It will be a small field, and it will be quite hard. Like it's all like you said, Patrick. Like even I'm starting to get acquainted with the online personalities of the game. No one's a pushover over there. Like everyone knows how to play the game quite well.
Except the Bucky players, they just know.
Are you insulting me,
Dude?
You insulting me, man?
No, not you. You were there in set 3. That's different.
s4iler has been banned.
I'm joking around.
Of course.
All the love.
So, how, like, in closing, basically, we've gone a full year through Lorcana. We've gone to the basic sets that were designed. How do you see the game right now? Where do you see the game heading? Do you plan on keeping on the road for years to come? Or do you think that it's going to stale up? Where are you at right now with the game and what we've seen so far?
I can start maybe on this one because I have two kids. One is 2 years and a half, and the other one is 1 year. And my goal is to play Lorcana with them. So hopefully the game survives like for the next 10 years at least, and I can still enjoy it with them. And maybe they're gonna be better than me because I'm playing with my dad and getting better than him. He showed me TCG, and I'm gonna show TCG to my kids. So it's just getting better in every generation. So that's my goal, making world champs from my offsprings. But yeah. This is my personal one, but for the more generic one, we had the D23 event this week, and they showed a lot of very cool stuff. Like they had Pixar coming in 2025. I think that's a huge part of like bringing new players. Maybe we have like some youth.
2026.
2026. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's long, but it means they already had plans for that much time and having maybe some Pixar fans coming to the game because of their favorite characters. Like, I think Lorcana is a great game, but I'm pretty sure it's the IP that makes it as huge as it is. And having a whole new set of IPs coming in, it's gonna be a huge hit. And they're releasing like the game in Japan, in Asian language.
On the
so-
Asian market.
yeah, so that's gonna be a big difference too. So potentially the World Champ of the next one of 2025 or maybe 2026, it depends. We are gonna have like 3 continentals for the qualifiers, and it's gonna be a more real World Champ because now it's just NA and EU. But yeah, that's
I mean,
that's
still
pretty
better
big.
than baseball.
Obviously.
Yeah. So the I think Lorcana is doing great. I think we always see like Facebook posts about like end of the world, like doomsayers, right? But don't believe any of that, right? The game's doing great. I think they've done incredibly well to go that far within only a year. I think they put a lot of pressure on themselves to try to do something good at the competitive level, and they mostly succeeded, right? Of course, there's some flaws here and there for sure that we can point, but in general, we've got a really robust, competitive, organized play, and I think it makes everyone really excited for the game, right? And they knew that they were gonna be able to reach families with the IP, but they didn't know if they were gonna be able to reach us, the TCG players. And I think they showed that they are. Simon, from like one of the most prestigious MTG player of all time, was playing in Bologna a week ago.
Simon Nielsen.
Yeah, Simon Nielsen. And like Frank Carson, I've been playing since the beginning. I've been writing for TCG Player. We have like Yu-Gi-Oh pros, Pokemon pros. They're all going because first, I think everyone is enjoying the Disney IP for sure. the game is very, very good. I think it's honestly just the game design. It's kind of a bit of luck, right? Like they're good designers, no questions asked, but like they just like found something that is just really, really solid, and I think people enjoy that a lot. And so I think we have a long future for the game. I think right now is actually the best time to just jump in because the cards are hell cheap. They're really, really cheap because the Ravensburger said many times that they're gonna print cards, right? They just want people to play the game, and so and I think they can afford to do that because the Disney collectors are just crazy, right, over these cards and over these products. So they can afford to print lots of cards and still have like retained value, which is like best of both worlds for both the company and for us.
Yeah, and also to build upon that, you're praising the competitive circuit. I have to say, I'm gonna shout him out by name just because I've spoken to him during the multiple DLCs. Like George Mercado from PPG Event Management is doing one hell of a job. Like you said, Ravensburger have been doing fantastic work for the past year. They've been so reactive. I was comparing it to Magic, which I still am playing actively, where sometimes decisions just linger on, and like you might have cards that are unfun to play against, and the ban still drags on for 3-4 more weeks. Some of the decisions are taken are just so weird to understand for us, the players that are not in the known of the behind the scene. Whilst with like Lorcana, they've increased the allocations for store. They've increased the print runs. They've created a competitive circuit. At the beginning of the game, I don't know if you guys remember, at the very beginning they said, we don't intend of in giving a competitive environment for the game, and then they just backtracked and contracted PPG, contracted Gamefinity in the EU, in Europe, for us to have those events, and they are sold out. Like I remember, I've got my ticket. Yeah, I got my ticket for Toronto easily, but I tried to have to get my ticket for Las Vegas, and I was there the second it started. I wasn't able to get it. I got it like 2 days after, but that level of hype is unseen before. I know there's another TCG that has that level of hype, which is One Piece TCG, that have the same kind of like reality as us, that they have a really, really, really strong IP that really drives the game and that make players want to play the game and just register for events as soon as they come out. And I think this is the strength of those two TCGs for the future, and that they might kind of carve their name in the like the pantheon of TCGs with Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh, right?
And I have to say, like, this is, of course, easier for us to say we're playing it, we're enjoying it, but from the outside, it's easily one of the most approachable communities as well for someone wanting to, even outside of competitive play. We, like here in Quebec City, we often have 15 to 20 people in various leagues. We have about 25 to 30% female to male ratio. It's like, we have, like, my son who's turning 11 has been playing since day one, has done okay competitively. He's won himself a Stitch. Like, everyone's able to come in. The community as a whole is super welcoming. I won't say the subreddit is fine. It's a subreddit. But yeah, you go on the official Discord. The designers are there. The writers are there. You can interact with the actual staff. The community over there is huge. The big content creator, be it s4iler, Lorcana Villain, Alphos, mostly in the EU, but also the ones on the North American side. Like, everyone is super into helping the community grow, helping the level of play get better and better, and like, to me, it's an amazing thing to see.
And I have to say, like, Ryan Miller, one of the co-creators of the game, is one of the sweetest persons I've ever met. Like, the guy is just like love incarnate. Like, he is passionate about his product. He's been designing for over like 12 15 years of card games. He designed some of the banger sets in Magic and in other games. And I met him in Atlanta, and he was just like so happy being there. He was there for both days, and instead of being like kind of tired and just like, you know, being a regular human being, he was just like, it's so great to be with you guys, like shaking hands, trying to remember names. Like, I went to see him before the top 8, and then he saw me on stage for the top 8, and he was like, so nice to see you again, and and called me by name, remembering it, which is just like, so you see that the people in this community care and just like give a lot of themselves for others. Like Pierre-Marc was saying, he's doing a lot of coaching. I know Patrick is really, really, really generous with advice in the community. I know I try to drive the community locally in Quebec City. Like, everybody has a lot of fun. Everybody has a lot of love to give for the game. So,
yeah.
And closing it up, I'll leave the floor to you guys if you have any shout outs to do, any closing remarks. Hopefully no hateful comment. But seriously, the floor is yours. Close this show for us. Patrick, you've been
Shout
quiet.
out to the Ink Spill Glimmers for inviting us. We're talking about how to keep like the community active and how the game is going. I think we're seeing more and more content creator, which is gonna help. I also think Ravensburger is pretty smart. Like, they did put a promo card into their Villainous box. They give new cards into the big Disney event. So then the words are getting spread everywhere about the game. People will know about it. Pro players from other games coming to it. So yeah, the future is bright, and I think having content creators like you really help for that. And hoping to see more and more players I know, both digitally, online, or in person, as those DLC, because it's quite a lot of fun to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Thanks for all what you guys doing for community in general. I think we always try to go one step further into trying to get like something great, right? Because we've been playing these other TCGs. We've seen what toxicity means. We've seen, like, you know, what like a bad environment is. And so I think with this Disney IP, it's just the perfect environment to just try to do better and be better as an individual, right? As a better person, trying to help others. I think it fits the theme of the game pretty well, and we should just embrace it totally. Just give a shout out to all my friends on Discords. Of course, like, I've been having this huge community, but also people that have come to me in these events and just take pictures, have me sign cards. You know, I it's just out of my mind, right? Like, I'm just like, you know, a Quebecer who's built a deck and did coaching for a deck, and I'm here in Dallas, and people recognize me and say hi. I'm like, oh, I'm so inspired, but what you're doing, I'm like, wow, this is something else, man. I don't know what's happening, and I'm so grateful for all of that. Like, people are so supportive of others, right? It's just simply that, like, we're not against somebody. We're just playing a game together, and that makes the game so much more fun, even when we're losing. And so, yeah, shout out to my team, also Team Labyrinth, bunch of really knowledgeable guys who are doing really good in Lorcana, and so I'm really grateful to just be in their team. And so, yeah, that's it.
I want to shout out. I will say, like, I don't want to be cheesy on this, but like the big Lorcana family, right? Because that's how it felt from the beginning. Like, we're all been quite close. We've seen each other since day one. I remember playing with Pierre-Marc in set number 1. I've met Patrick through Lorcana. I've never met you before, and like, we don't live far from each other. Like, it's 10 minutes by car, and like, I never seen you before, and now I met you. So I want to shout out to the big Lorcana family, the Lorcana community here in Quebec, the province of Quebec, to which I've been able to be an administrator for the Facebook group, and everybody has come with more nice words than not about it. I want to shout out my team from the Mythic store. I want to shout out Pascal, Virgile, Gabriel, Kevin, and all the guys from Sherbrooke that are also our, let's say, expanded team. And last but not least, to our great host, Nicholas, that started this channel. So, shout out to you. Thank you very much for having all of us. And let's hope we can do it again.
I mean, you're very welcome, but most importantly, I want to shout out you guys, the viewers. Without you, we'd probably still be doing it, but it's great to have an audience. Gives us a little bit more purpose. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share this content if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you back with some gameplay once Toronto is finished and Alexandru has done his prep. But stay tuned for a lot of spicy stuff coming in set 5.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.